Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, Minister of Finance, Social Development, Social Security, and Climate Resilience. Honorable Frederick, Minister for the Environment, Rural Upliftment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment. Honorable Members of Cabinet, Mrs. Annette Stanford, Kalinago Chief, and all the councillors. Ms. Lydia Capitone Toussaint, Chief Personnel Officer, all the permanent secretaries, Mrs. Colin Roberts, National Authorizing Officer and Director of Major Capital Projects, Mr. Justin Sean, Head of UNDP Local Office, Heads of Divisions of the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment, Mr. Glenn Laville, Contracts Manager for Major Capital Projects Office, Dr. Gianoro Joseph, Project Manager for Major Capital Projects Office, and also the Project Manager for this project, Mrs. Marvin Coffey, the Project Coordinator for the Project Management Team, Mr. Paul Phillip, the CEO of the contractor, Mr. Mark Frampton, who is our Principal Architect and Consultant for the supervision of the construction, other members of the construction team and also the consultant team, Mrs. Laville Matthew, the chair of the Atkinson Village Council, president and members of the Hamlet Development Committee of the Kalinago Territory, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, members of the media, a very good morning to everyone. I am, of course, not Alice Dalrymple, who is supposed to be our mistress of ceremony, but due to some personal emergency this morning, she's unable to be with us at this time. Let me, first of all, take this opportunity to tell you, to me, it's a considered privilege on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment to extend heartfelt courtesies and consideration for you attending this contract signing ceremony and media launch for the Kalinago Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter construction. The occasion affords us the opportunity to share with you, the officials, audience, media, and the wider public, the proposed plans and activities for the development of the Kalinago Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter, while at the same time, we take stock of the proposed project and to examine the manner in which it will contribute to overall national development. Permit me, therefore, to remind you that it is not by coincidence, nor it is by isolated intervention, why we are here to bear witness to the signing of this contract for the construction of a major capital project. Remember that is some 76 months ago, we made a very bold commitment as a sovereign people in support of the declaration made by the Honorable Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica to the 72nd United Nations General Assembly on the 23rd of September 2017 to be the first climate resilient nation of the world. That was actually 5 days after the passage of Hurricane Maria over Dominica. To ensure, therefore, that we got it right from the very first time, a strategy and a plan were developed and adopted by the Commonwealth of Dominica. The strategy, of course, was the National Resilient Development Strategy that we call NRDS, and the Climate Resilience and Recovery Plan that we affectionately refer to as the CRRP. Those documents are the premier instrument which set the stage for a very sustained development as we plan to be the first climate resilient country of the world. Let me therefore highlight just one of the 6 key result areas. And the number 1 is very appropriate for us this morning because it's what articulates that for us to be a climate resilient country, we first of all has to be a very strong community. And so it's by no coincidence why we have this project today, because let me remind some of us, when we talk about strong communities, we are referring to communities where our infrastructure can bounce back very quickly or is built and constructed in such a manner that it can withstand the worst strains and stresses so that it doesn't in any way get destroyed. At the same time, we must be cognizant of the human elements that pertains to adequate shelter, water, power, and of course telecommunications capabilities. And of course you realize when Dr. Joseph gives you the overview why we are so happy about the development of the multipurpose center and of course emergency shelter. So for us at the ministry, it gives us distinct pleasure since we are about to embark on a very tangible action that signified a very significant milestone in building strong communities. Furthermore, the proposed building works is a component of a wider program seeking to build adaptive capacity to climate change and disaster risk in the Kalinago territory. The free order component pertains to the formulation of a 5-year development plan and training for the Kalinago territory, the preparation of a building maintenance and training manual for the Kalinago territory, and of course, the preparation of a disaster risk management and climate adaptation plan for the territory in collaboration with the development of an inclusive disaster risk management and climate adaptation public awareness and education campaign for the Kalinago territory. The Kalinago Territory Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter is arguably more than just a project. It is a symbol of progress, resilience, and collaboration. I am obviously elated to welcome you to this significant milestone in our nation's development and a deliberate attempt to uplift the Indigenous people and the iconic identity of Dominica. On behalf of the ministry, I'm therefore obligated to recognize in a very significant way the distinguished presence of the Honorable Prime Minister and so many honorable members of Cabinet here with us this morning. Of course, the distinguished presence of the Kalinago Chief, Mistress Stanford, as well as the other councillors, other dignitaries, and former parliamentary representative for the Calabar constituency. We're deeply honored to have you among us and for your participation. Once again, I welcome everyone to this very cordial and informative function, the sign-in ceremony and media launch for the construction of the Kalinago Territory Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter. Thank you for your audience and for your attention. It is for me at this point a distinguished honor and privilege to call to the podium the person who is going to be the representative for the client, meaning that she will be the one responsible for the technical supervision and execution of the contract. And for this, it is my honor to call to the podium Dr. Joseph to give us the overview of the project.
Good morning, Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister and Minister for Investment and Governance, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, the Minister for Finance, Economic Development, Climate Resilience and Social Security, Honorable Frederick, the Minister for Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment, other members of Cabinet, Mrs. Annette Thomas Sanford, the Kalinago chief, and her counselors, Ms. Karine Privot, secretary to the cabinet, Mrs. Lydia Capitolin-Toussaint, the chief personnel officer, Ms. Denise Edwards, financial secretary, Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Climate Resilience, and Social Security, Mr. Lucien Blackmore, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment, other permanent secretaries, Ms. Colleen Roberts, National Authorizing Officer, as well as the Director of the Major Capital Projects Office, Dr. Justin Schoen, Head of the UNDP Project Office in Dominica, and other UNDP staff who are present here today, Ms. Alice Dalrymple, who is absent, but we acknowledge her. She is the Kalinago Development Officer in the Ministry of Environment, other heads of division in the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Glenn Naville, the Contracts Manager in the Major Capital Projects Office, Mrs. Marilyn Coffey Morris, the Project Coordinator of the Project Management Team and staff for this project, Mr. Paul Phillip, the CEO of Oyo Construction Limited and Virtuoso Architects Limited, the joint venture who is contracted to construct the Kalinago Multipurpose Center, Mr. Mark Frampton, in absentia but represented by Mr. Burgess Stout. He is the principal architect and of Anonymous Architecture and other staff representing the architect. Mrs. Muta Laville Matthew, Chair of the Atkinson Village Council, President and members of the Hamlet Development Committees, ladies and gentlemen, our viewers and listeners and members of the media. Good morning. Today we gather on this auspicious occasion to commemorate the signing of the contract for the Kalinago Territory Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter. The building works component of the project, building adaptive capacity to climate change and disaster risk in the Kalinago Territory. In addition to the construction of the Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter, as you have heard from the Permanent Secretary, the project also consists of soft components which involve free consultancies. The entire project is aimed at encouraging capacity building and development in the Kalinago Territory. The Kalinago Territory Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter is a much anticipated construction project. It has a gestation period which commenced in October of 2020. The supervising consultant is a consortium comprised of Anonymous Architecture Inc. They are the architects and the designers. Consulting Engineers Partnership, this project's civil and structural engineers, and John Francis, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer. I speak on behalf of all project partners when I say that we are indeed very pleased that we have arrived at this very important juncture in the project's lifetime, and that is the signing of a contract with the joint venture Oyo Construction Limited and Virtuoso Architects. Importantly, the implementation of this project has been made possible by grant funds provided by the Canadian government through the Community Disaster Risk Reduction Fund administered by the Caribbean Development Bank. Counterpart funding has also been provided by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The total funding envelope for the project consists of Eastern Caribbean dollars 5.5 million and 3 million in counterpart funding from the government of Dominica. The structure is expected to cost 7.6 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. The building will be a reinforced concrete single-story structure with a total floor space of 8,176 square feet and capacity for 125 beds. The structure will provide amenities inclusive of washrooms, kitchen, dining space, food and material storage, general offices, an emergency operations office, a first aid center, library, and computer room. Externally, the space will be configured to provide for a garage, garbage collection area, 40-foot container drop-off, and parking. The single-story structure will incorporate features such as ramps and inclusive washrooms in accordance with Appendix F of the OECS Building Code, which makes provisions for people with disabilities. And I must note that the building has been endorsed by the Dominica Association of People with Disabilities. Therefore, the center will offer inclusive parking and designated bays for people with disabilities, as well as emergency vehicles. Backup communications, emergency standby power in the form of a 75 kilovolt amp diesel generator will also be included in the structure. as well as submerged water storage tanks with a 15,000 gallon capacity. These features will ensure that the building can function independently in times of disaster. In addition to the distinctive aesthetic qualities of the structure, the building will also incorporate green design features, harnessing natural ventilation and energy-efficient LED lighting. An auxiliary photovoltaic system of up to 18 kilowatts will also be incorporated into the structure. Rainwater harvesting will be used, and there will be a central interior garden which has been incorporated into the design to improve aesthetics but also improve natural ventilation. The safety of the occupants of the structure is paramount, and as such, the building has been equipped with fire detection and suppression systems. The structure has been conceptualized to be aesthetically pleasing, functional, and meaningful. The architectural design of the building is inspired by Kalinago folklore, landmarks, and culture. In particular, the legend of Escalier Tetchien, which we all know of, and the distinctive Majini Peak, as well as the Kalinago basket weaving traditions, have influenced and inspired the design of the structure. The building has been designed to be a resilient structure, which will aid in our disaster risk management and recovery strategies following a climatic event. And so it has been designed to withstand both seismic and wind loads in accordance with ASCE 710 and ASCE 716 design procedures respectively. One of the pillars of our climate resilience and recovery plan is the building of strong communities throughout Dominica. These communities are required to operate independently for up to 15 days following a natural disaster. And therefore, it is envisioned that the center will contribute substantially towards the disaster risk management and resilience, as well as recovery in the Kalinago territory. Hurricane Maria served as a very poignant reminder of our island's vulnerability to the devastating effects of anthropogenic climate change. And consequently, projects such as these are indeed necessary components of our climate change adaptation strategy. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Joseph, and of course you can understand why it's a climate resilient structure. On that note, it is my absolute pleasure to call to the podium none other than the Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, the Prime Minister of Dominica, for his contribution. Dr. Skerrit.
Morning. Sorry, I have to break protocol to speak first. I have to visit the grammar school where we're spending an inordinate amount of money building a brand new school at the grammar school. So I need to visit there with the Ministry of Education and the contractors. But I want to say good morning to everyone. Let me recognize my friends and colleagues. Honorable McIntyre, our Minister of Finance. Honorable Frederick, our Minister of Kalinago Upliftment. My other cabinet colleagues present. I'd like to recognize the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, Mr. Lucien Blackmore. Other permanent secretaries, I also see the Director of Audit. I would like to recognize the Kalinago Chief, Mr. Sanford, and councillors. I would like to recognize the representative of the UNDP here. And of course, I see some of my former colleagues, Honorable Kelly Brano and Rosalind Paul. And I suspect the list of names is longer than my speech, you know. I want to recognize all of you here this morning, and such a pleasure to be here to finally witness the signing of the contract for a major edifice in the Kalinago territory. This amount in any currency is a huge amount. And I do not think that we in the Kalinago territory should underestimate that level of investment and what that investment means for current and future generations. And it is part of our resilience agenda, ensuring that not only the country as a whole is resilient, but we ensure that communities are resilient and households are resilient. Households by building new resilient homes that can withstand the impact of a Category 5 hurricane. ensuring that the school that we're building in Sinico is also climate proof. And the whole concept of the construction of these multi-purpose emergency centers across Dominica is to ensure that in time of a hurricane or natural disaster, we eliminate the use of the schools and churches as shelters so that children can get back to school at the soonest opportunity after the disaster. And this is what our resilience agenda is seeking to do. It is not to prevent disasters, because it's not us that will prevent the hurricanes, it's those who have the high emitters of carbon emission into the atmosphere. But recognizing that they're not doing anything to address the issue of climate impact, we decided to do things to mitigate against the impact of climate change. And so the vision which I espoused at the United Nations General Assembly in 2017, a few days after the hurricane in Dominica, was to do that very thing. But it does not only look at infrastructure, it looks at our legislation, it looks at our fiscal policies, it looks at our debt management, it looks at our health system, it looks at our education system. It is a comprehensive national plan. There's no other country in the world that has such a national plan and a national strategy to deal with climate resilience. And there's nowhere in the world you can speak about climate change and not reference Dominica and what Dominica has done and is doing where climate change is concerned. And the world has seen that we not only espouse a vision, but we are also doing something about the implementation of that vision. And so this is part of this process. And so we went through a tender process and we had $5.5 million there for the project. Then I get a correspondence from the Minister for Kalinago Affairs, Honorable Frederick, saying that we have gone over the budget. And we need $2.5 million more. I'm saying, but I mean, it's already the building expensive. I mean, 5.5 to tell me one more. So I can tell you that document stayed on my desk for a couple of weeks. Because in everything, like the way you manage your finances, your home, you have to rationalize. And it took me a couple of weeks to make a determination on whether I'll be able to make available the additional funding or we go back to tender. And eventually I decided, okay, well, I will authorize the government to put in additional funds to allow for us to sign the contract and negate the need to go into a public tender again. And this is why we're here today, to sign this contract. Now, this investment is on top of, we haven't gone to Parliament 2 weeks ago, to contract a loan of $103 million as variations on the East Coast Road. And out of that $104 million, first of all, out of the $127 million initial contract, 79 of that is spent in the Kalinago territory. And out of the 103 that we just contracted from the World Bank as variations, 89 of that is being spent in the Kalinago territory. Because we took into consideration the impact of the trough of November 2022 and the need to redesign certain aspects of the road to ensure that it meets the ultimate resilience plan and intention of this project. But what does this road mean to the Kalinago people and to Dominica as a whole? It's going to enhance your economic opportunity. More people are going to want to come to the Kalinago territory because it's easier access. And this facility is part of this strategy, is part of this plan, because when you look at this building and what it entails, that you can run the Kalinago territory with this building if you have a storm, because you can go for as long as 2 to 3 weeks in terms of water supply, and plus we're using renewable energy to power the building. We have beds for 100 plus people, and we can have quite a number of families. And with the number of homes that we build in the Kalinago territory, the 100 and some beds might be even too many, because we build in resilient homes for the Kalinago people. As a matter of fact, I'll be in the Kalinago territory soon because we have to redo some of the housing schemes. I know there's material on site and we'll start work next week or so. And there's several individuals who have been promised homes that we have the funds to build this home. So we continue to invest heavily in the Kalinago territory. I think what we have to do as citizens is recognize those investments that the government is making, and to see what can we do, or what do we need to do to take advantage of those investments. And I think it's a conversation that we have to have, because we have to start in the country speaking about individual contribution and individual responsibility. We cannot always look to the government for everything that we believe. Even when I hear people in the public talking about what the country needs, a lot of what they say the country needs rests with the private sector. And people tend to forget that this country is an open economy, that this country is not a system where the state owns things. And if you go to the United States and America, as far as I know, the federal government doesn't own any schools, any university, sorry. Not one university. If you go to the state of New York, not one hospital is owned by the government, all private sector. This is why Obama had to bring an Affordable Care Act, to ensure that those who don't have the means, that the state can help them access health care. And health is a responsibility, albeit primary health, a responsibility of the state. And so when we'll talk about, well, we need places for middle class people to go to, then if we need places for middle class people to go to, and we see an economic opportunity that we can make money, that rests with the private sector. The government cannot go and build a restaurant and own it. I don't believe the government should be owning these things, the private sector. And if you look at the government investments, most of the investments in this country, the government has a hand in it, from hotel construction to healthcare, you name it, we have a hand in it in terms of our direct contributions. And so this investment of I believe the construction cost will be 7.6 million, and the associate management costs will add it to $8.5 million in total. And I also recognize that the contractor is a local contractor. Sometimes people don't talk about those things. We hear people say, well, everything in the country is for foreigners, which is not true. Which is not true at all. A significant number of local contractors are engaged. On the 10th, I believe, we signed another contract for $7.7 million in Ministry of Agriculture. We're a local contractor. So local contractors have been engaged in dramatic ways in terms of construction and engagement as far as practically possible. But the reality is, in this business, you have to meet a particular minimal threshold. There are certain considerations that you have to be able to qualify to bid for these projects. And this is why it's important that I always keep telling local people with skills that we too like to do things by ourselves in Dominica. That we have to consolidate skills and talents and capacities. You know what I'm saying? If you're a trained accountant, trying to get one little business to give you a contract to do the books for them, why can't we consolidate and have one huge accounting firm in Dominica that can not only have national domination, but can have regional and global reach? If you are lawyers and everybody want to have a shingle, so-and-so chambers, why can't we consolidate and have a huge law firm and have a global reach? If we're architects and you have to wait for people, because most Dominicans don't like to pay architects and and for the kind of joy that they want. But if as we all do, we go on Pinterest and we go on and we see all kind of houses that we like, this and that we want, we have to consolidate. You know, if you're an engineer, you're an architect, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you can have a firm that deals with a number of services: construction, legal, accounting, and you provide a service. Instead of we sitting on an armchair and saying what the government should do, you know, it's typical of two men on the batting and weighing the stands, and we're telling the batsman how to bat. Until we're given the bat and we understand shape, that's difficult. You know, when you're in the driving seat, you don't have the opportunity for hindsight or what you should do at the point in time. You have to do what you need to do at this point in time. And so, what I would like to see in the Kalinago territory is for the Kalinago territory to pay particular attention to self-sufficiency. And Dominica as a whole, if we're gonna go into a supermarket or a mini-mart for our free meals in any country in the world, we'll have a problem. If the Lord gives us land, it is not to say it's our land and try to say who's there and who's trespassing and who's not trespassing and put up a sign, private property do not trespass. It is to make use of it. And we have to embark on an aggressive program of growing what we eat and eating what we grow. And I understand it is a natural evolution. The more you get developed, the less we rely on ourselves. And the less we rely on that which we relied on prior to us getting to the level that we are. But we have to step back and do some reflections. And we have to grow what we eat. We have to plant the vegetables. And with all of these ailments, it has to do partly with and largely with what we consume and what we don't consume. And so we have to address the issue of growing what we eat and so on. And we have to be careful that we don't become too academic and expose intellectualism too much over pragmatism and practicality and what is required. And I stand before you as a 100%, almost 100% self-sufficient. I have my own eggs, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to move into Talapias myself so I can have my own fish too. And I'll be full circle and so on. You know, and we have to grow what we eat. And so I am very happy for the Kalinago people. This is a major investment. It is part of the government's strategy, and you know, when the hurricane hit us, I never wanted the world to remember us of the impact of the hurricane. I wanted the world to remember us based on our response. What did we do in the circumstance? And that's what the world is reminding us of, our response. And we're now a poster child globally on resilience building. We have popularized, as a matter of fact, we should have sought to trademark the word resilience. Resilience in respect to climate change response and so on. And I want to commend highly the Minister for Kalinago Affairs, who has been leading this charge and this project from inception and provided great political oversight to this. As you know, in the Kalinago territory we have a lot of land, but difficult places to build. And locating a place to build this, I remember coming to the Kalinago territory and walking, driving around trying to see where is the best place to build this. And we came to Bataka, you know, there, and then we have to impact people's private homes and private property. And how do you tell somebody that you need a house because you're going to build a facility? And I also want to especially recognize Aunt Timothy, who was so gracious in allowing us to use her property here. She had just done some renovations to her home, and she was so gracious to allow us to acquire her property, because obviously the way top rank in these schools is very small. We have to go expand, and so far I remember First 11 to call her up and asking whether she would be prepared to sell the property, and she was without any hesitation. So without her and others who own properties in the vicinity of the top ranking disco in Baraka, we will not be able to have the appropriate location, site for the construction of this facility. And so we're very grateful for them for that, and of course all of the folks in the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, past and present, and the former Kalinago chief who was very helpful, Mr. Lawrence Sanford and the Kalinago Council then for the cooperation and collaboration. And this is what we need. There's nobody who's going to survive in this world and properly represent their people if you're not prepared to collaborate. And let me send a song of caution to the Kalinago Council. You cannot bring development to the Kalinago Terry people unless you collaborate with central government. It's not going to work. You'll be doing the people a great disservice. We can have our differences, but we must never lose sight of our responsibility, which is to serve the people who elect us. And we must do so sincerely, transparently, and with good intentions. The record will show that there is no prime minister in this country, and you can put all of them together, both post and pre our independence, who has invested more in the Kalinago territory than Roosevelt's territory, government-led by himself. And the first time the Kalinago people have seen any kind of meaningful investment is when I became Prime Minister in 2004. And we continue to manifest that interest. And I do so from an ideological standpoint. I'm a student of history. And I spent a lot of my time growing up as a young boy reading on indigenous communities across the world. So I can tell you about the kibbutz in Israel, if we have time. I visited many of those. Anywhere I go in the world, I visited indigenous communities. When I studied in the United States, I went to many pueblos and reservations in Canada, visited them. And so I understand the struggles, the historical and contemporary struggles of indigenous people. And lest we forget in Dominica, prior to 2004, the Kalinago territory was a highly marginalized community and discriminated against people in Dominica. Today, every Kalinago in Dominica, as a matter of fact, the indigenous communities of the region take what's happening in Dominica as a source of hope for them in terms of the respect, in terms of the consideration, in terms of the attention, and in terms of the investments. There is no Kalinago person in Dominica who 20 years ago would have ever thought in their minds that you would have had a president of the country as an indigenous person. There's no time. And you have that. And our hope and prayer is that the current generation of young people can use that as a source of inspiration, as a source of motivation. And this is why it is important for all of us in the Kalinago, as Kalinago people, to proclaim these things and to instill a positive spirit in current youthful generations, to let them know that their race, their creed, or their class is not a barrier to their upliftment. It is how they see life and how they view life and what you do. And those of us who are Christians, the Bible says you shall reap what you sow. So what do you want to? And so let us, in this 2025, as a people and country, exalt a greater sense of cooperation, respect, working together for common good. Because if the house is divided, there's no way we can stand and no way we can get the progress that we want to get. And we should never allow fickle things like religion and politics to be seen as dividers. They should be seen more as motivation for working more together, for working together even more. And so we continue to extend that hand of collaboration and cooperation to all who are genuinely interested in the upliftment of people, and in your case, in the Kalinago people specifically. And as we've done in the past, we join hands with all, but those who don't want to join hands will not serve as a demotivation for us. We press on, and so we have the motivation to work, because the motivation comes from within. It is called intrinsic motivation. So my motivation is not motivated by any external factors. It is within my psyche, within my ideological and philosophical view of life. And this is why, if you look at our foreign policy and our expressions on global issues, this government has always stood against injustices globally. This is why we don't support any war of any kind. This is why we don't support sanctions on anybody or any individual or any country, because sanctions never serve purpose or achieve the goal that any country wants to achieve. It only brings pain and suffering to the least among us, to the voiceless and the defenseless, and therefore we don't support these things. And we have been consistent with our opposition towards any war of any kind, whether it's been done by an ally of ours or a friend of ours. We are consistent in this, and this is philosophical and ideological in making. And so, ministers, colleagues, friends, dear friends from the Kalinago territory, we're happy for you. Let us ensure that the project is implemented within the time frame. Let me make it very clear: permanent secretary and project management and contractor, no cost overruns. Any variation must be approved by the Prime Minister. Anybody who goes and does any variation on your own, you will pay for it on your own. I cannot afford to put any more money to this project. We've put way beyond what we should have put, but we need to do it to ensure that the project could be started and completed. I find some of our project management is very poor in the government system, and if you have poor project management, more time you spend on a project is more money you spend on it. And I find that sometimes in Dominica we like to wash our tools at 2 o'clock when the Bible cautions us against sleeping too much. It says, "He who is a lover of sleep, poverty shall be your companion." And I find we want to rest too much in Dominica. We have to work harder and more, because we always like to covet what people have, and what people have we want, but we're not prepared to work for it. If we see something somebody has and we want it, work for it by yours. You understand? And my final point is that in Dominica, is that when we travel, and especially as we're watching TV, and all of us have Netflix and all these things that we watch every day, and we see things in our country and we want it in Dominica, but we look at the end result of what the person has in the country, but we never exercise our minds of what that country did to get what that country has. And even when we try to do things that Dominicans say they want, they do not want the government to do what the government has to do to give them what they want. So we used to be criticized and say the only country in the Caribbean that doesn't have an international airport is Dominica. When we're doing it, we are faced with court challenges. We are faced with people saying we don't need an airport. What is the Douglas Church is okay. You understand? But yes, we want an international airport. And so in our part of the world, sometimes we see consultation. People say they want to be consulted. But I get the impression that we have a different definition of consultation in Dominica. I get the impression that we view consultation as a means of blocking something. Not, a consultation has to be, we come to the table, we share our views. If some of our views make sense, they are taken into consideration. If they don't, then they're set aside for one reason or the other. And then from a consensus standpoint, we move forward. You know why the world has some serious problems? Because of the United Nations. You have you have the United Nations, 193 countries. They're all part of the General Assembly. And then you have the Security Council that really runs the United Nations. And within the Security Council, you have permanent and non-permanent members. And within that permanent membership structure, you have 5 countries with a veto power. And if 192 countries say we go in a particular way, as they have on some issues, and one country with the veto power says no, it doesn't go forward. In our system, it is structured by the way the Constitution, remember the Constitution came before I became Prime Minister, people behave as if, well, I brought the Constitution in Dominica. It has always been there, Mr. Still all life, Prime Minister under the same Constitution. There's Parliament. Parliament consults, but a matter cannot become law unless Parliament says so. And even after Parliament has passed the legislation, it has to be assented to by the President in some cases. But unless a bill goes to Parliament, it can't be law. You understand? And so we have to see consultation as a means of enhancing, adding value, so that we can implement and move away from what people want to be an endless consultation. And so we held consultation on this project. And I believe I may have attended one of them. There were many different views of it. We also held consultation with regard to the draft designs, architectural drawings, and so forth. But if we had to wait for everybody's view to have been imputed into this design, we will not be here today. Understand? And so I'm happy for all of you. I look forward to the official groundbreaking. We should have a groundbreaking where we can bless the soil and to seek God's guidance in its construction. But for you to get to the point, you have to sign the contract. We're happy to be here to sign the contract. I want to thank the Government of Canada for its financial contribution to this project, and also the CDB for its facilitation as where these funds are being managed from, and so forth. So our task now is to effectively and efficiently implement the project, reminding ourselves always, daily, Mrs. Morris and others, that no cost overruns, no variations. This one I don't have to go to Parliament for it, but it's become law. I wish you all the best, and I wish you a happy New Year. And what a better way to start the New Year as the Indigenous people of Dominica, with this major gift of this facility that will certainly enhance the resilience of the people, enhance the architectural beauty, because this is an architectural masterpiece. that would serve as a true embodiment of the Kalinago people, your history and your tradition. And all of those things were taken into consideration. And by taking all of those historical issues into consideration, that's one of the reasons why the cost is so high. If you look at the basket, this area that looks like a basket, it is holding the building. You know, I mean, if the truth is we could have built a couple of homes with that money instead. That's why I held it back, you know, because I think I have so many people homes to build in the Kalinago territory, and of course my friend there from Atkinson that we have to study homes in Atkinson and so on, to spend additional $2.5 million on this building. And this is what I think people have to appreciate. I'm saying this so that we can understand the dilemma in which the government is faced sometimes in how we do things. Because if we did not make the additional funds available, we would have to take another 6 months or so to go back through the process of redesigning, scaling down, right? That may take about 3 months, 4 months, depending. Then you go back to tender. You give the bidders a month or 60 days to present their bids. Then you have to take a month to review the tender. So you will be here next year January. You know, and so what you will find, and you will expect naturally, is that some of the other things that we may want or we may have been promised in the Kalinago territory will be delayed because priority had been given to this project. You understand? So this is how, and of course the additional $89 million that we spend by way of the road in the Kalinago territory. I know you complain, but I see a lot of complaints and people send me WhatsApp messages of the road in Kalinago territory. I think the Lord will be happy if the same way we complain against him, that we could also post thanking the Lord for what a magnificent road that we now have in the Kalinago territory. I think the Lord will be happy with that. And the spirits of your ancestors would say that you're representing them well. that you're showing appreciation. You know, because now most of you are sending messages are telling me, scared Prime Minister, we need speed bumps in the Kalinago territory. Speed bumps. You know, old and young telling me that, which means that the road good, the road nice. But if the road nice, I mean, I know you dust there and you used to post and dust, why dust and so on, and so on. And now that you have the best road in the country, for Christ's sake. Because remember, all of you read the Bibles, and now Bible you can access it on your phones. So I'm sure you read it every single day. Every single day. But it is written, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. And I always tell people, when you're criticizing the government, you're really not criticizing me. Because I'm only an instrument that the Lord is using on earth to do his work. This is why central to our work is from Matthew 27. You look at me like you don't know what Matthew 27 says. You guys go to church and you're reading the Bible probably. You rely on only what the priest and pastor tells you. And the way the priest and pastors preach these days, I'm not sure you're reading the Bible sometimes, you know. So be careful. Read your own Bible for yourself, and you can get some self-explanation online too, devoid of political considerations. As some of the pastors and priests now are using more politics to interpret the Word of God, rather than interpreting the Word of God, you know. So be careful if you rely only on the priest or pastor for your salvation. You might have problems. Yeah. Take it from Brother Scarrett. But I wish you all the best. Really. I have to leave. I'm sorry I couldn't stay for the answer question, but put all the questions to Dr. Mark and all the questions to Cozier Frederick and so on. Whatever they say to you are my words and so on. Okay? But thank you very much. God bless you then.
Thank you very much, PM. Let's all stand to allow the Prime Minister to exit. Thank you very much. Please be seated. You understand why the Prime Minister has to speak last, eh? So PM has set up both Honorable McIntyre and Honorable Frederick. But I first of all want to recognize the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister, and of course, it's a direct manifestation to all of us the seriousness and the commitment that he attaches to this project. And what is even more instrumental and resonating in my mind, why I'm very happy PM was here today, because I can see my colleague Paul is looking at me very steadfastly, Mrs. Morris, and I haven't seen Mr. Laville, but I am seeing Dr. Joseph, who is the representative of the client, and you all have heard there shall be no cost overrun. Not will be, shall not be no cost overrun. And he went on further to say that the yields of project and cost overrun is that of the function of time. So I know that we have approximately 16 to 18 months, and I guess by the time we get out of here, we'll decide on the actual period that we do it as efficiently and as effectively as the Honorable Prime Minister said. And you could, those of us that still familiar with arithmetic, not maths, if you look at 2.5 on the right hand, and you look at 5.5 on the other hand, you will see the significant proportion that 2.5 is of 5.5. So I believe we can't go into any other cost overrun. But on that note, it is my pleasure, and before my pleasure, I want to recognize the presence, the distinguished presence of the Director of Audit. Not too often we see her, but I cannot not say a very good morning and welcome to Mrs. Melina Johnville, and of course to Master Pembo sitting together with her. So thank you for that, and of course Minister Frederick is not only the minister responsible for the environment and the minister responsible for this project, but I must say from direct association and involvement of the minister is a regional and global wave for most events, conferences, workshop, to have Honorable Frederick as part and parcel of that forum. And the fundamental reason is not just because he is an indigenous person, but he is someone that we can all attest to the fact that is extremely passionate about environmental protection and the preservation of the space that we all share. So I know for him it is an honor to be the minister responsible for the project, and more importantly, to be the parliamentary representative for the constituency in which the project is going to be undertaken, and for which I know he has been working steadfastly with all stakeholders to ensure that what we're looking for at the end of the day becomes a reality. So for that, let us all welcome to the podium Honorable Frederick.
Thank you very much, P.S. Blackmore. In his absence, I would like to acknowledge the Prime Minister, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, cabinet colleagues, and also former colleague, President Paul, the PSI, the Minister of Environment, Mr. Blackmore, and all the PSCs here, the good folks from the Major Capitals Projects Office, Dr. Joseph and the staff, the contractor and the architect, the Atkinson Council, the Kalinago Council, the Chief and Kalinago Councillors, the staff of the Ministry of Environment, various heads, former Minister of Kalinago Affairs, the project coordinator and the team, these various stakeholders, the leaders of the Hamlet Development Committees, our international partners, an important partner with me here this morning, Honorable Dr. Colin McIntyre, the Minister of Finance, and the media. Today, friends, comrades, brothers and sisters, I think this will be one of my most cherished days, as being a Kalinago individual, but also being the minister responsible for Kalinago upliftment, because we are getting into the real brick and mortar and steel that will bring out an edifice that will protect the indigenous people of our space. And not only that, it's an edifice that will provide shelter from the people all the way from Wakama to Pegwa. So in essence, the entire Salbe constituency. But before the Prime Minister had a wonderful expose, but there's some people who have been part of this project for so long, and I'm hoping that they not fall through the cracks as we continue to do the work within that space. Special thanks to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, the previous Cabinet from 2019. And I would love to do a first name. The guys like Richardo and Paul from the CDB, and Natalia from the Kenyan government, Francine Barron, Ambassador Barron, and Mr. Carrot from the Creed, past PS, Mandra, Fagan, Sylvanie Burton, who's now the president, Dr. Paul, Mrs. Daly, Roy, and now Mr. Blackmore, PSs, and Timothy, former parliamentarian for the Cyber constituency, and her husband and some other landowners, comrades, the Grano brothers, Kelly and Ashton, and Cassius, Donaldson Frederick, former KDO, Alice Narampal as well, the former chief Ubuntu Sanford, Lorenzo and his chief, and the Mark Frampton who designed the building, and the CEP consultant engineering firm. The 100 committees were revamped through that project, from Sineku all the way to Atkinson and across to Concord. And also the national stakeholders, the ODM, local government, the DADP, the Met Office, and all those wonderful people who participated in the softer part of the project. Now, I happen to live in that wonderful space, the biggest Salbe constituency, for a number of years. And it is very clear to me that for the past 20 years or so, I have seen with my own eyes, in my own time, development happening within that space. And what is important for me as a Kalinago individual, a Kalinago brave, is that all of those efforts, in various ways than one, aim to preserve our Kalinago culture, improve our standard of living, and also to promote some form of economic opportunities. And so I have seen a gradual and progressive change. So for example, infrastructure and development, new homes, new roads, new schools, education and training, support for students at the high school level, the tertiary level, various training across the board, economic development in terms of tourism and innovation. The KB is a good example of it, the continuous training over time, support for the agriculture and the arts and craft, cultural preservation, and I see my sister here, Miranda Langley, a cultural stalwart, a Kalinago queen in her own right. And there's always been an effort throughout our projects to ensure that the culture that really makes us the backbone of Waitukubuli, the backbone of Dominica, that it remains very much alive in keeping our language intact, keeping our practices, our festivals. All of those are important things. And also importantly, to honor the land rights of our people. Because throughout the last 20 or so years, I've seen serious consultations with local authorities like the council and central government to ensure that we do not infringe on the rights of our people. But what brings us here today is another piece of this entire conversation, climate resilience. And the Prime Minister spoke about resilience in Dominica, and I did say that people living within the region a region that had a massive civilization for more than 4,000 years, who survived everything nature could bring against us, who survived the onslaught of the colonizers who came in, the diseases and wars, bloodshed, and to survive in 2024 as a people, existing, not complaining, but striving as hard as we can to survive and to remain relevant in our own time. And so the resilient agenda of Dominica is predicated on the fact that we have a people who have lived this experience for hundreds of years. And so I dare say that the definition of resilience sits with the Kalinago people. And so the government understands that. And so it is this resilience that brings us here today to move ahead with the construction of a building. Now, if you realize throughout the conversation this morning that this structure that is being done moves or it goes way beyond the concrete and mortar. There are softer parts of the project that we have to deal with to ensure the people are empowered, that we get training in disaster response. So the softer parts. And sometimes when we look at development in a community or in a country, we see the things that are actually built. So we see the roads, we see the houses, we see the various structures, but sometimes we forget that we're also building people. And I think this is an important part of the conversation. And so our shelter is for many, there are many reasons for this. It will provide immediate shelter and safety for us within that space. There will be basic needs and support. It's also a pathway to recovery, where it is important to understand that beyond the immediate relief, that a shelter serves as a foundation for long-term recovery. It's an important piece because this is the essence of what the Indigenous spirit is about. And so I'm really happy to be part of a government that continues to honor the heritage of the Kalinago people, because it is part of the human diversity. There's a lot of heritage and wisdom that comes with having us within that space. And this is why we're building a structure that will showcase the architecture of our people. We go to France to see the Eiffel Tower. We go to various countries to see magnificent pieces of work. And you shall come to the Kalinago space to have a photo next to the wonderful center, which not only serve as an emergency shelter, but as a cultural gathering space where we will have concerts and showcase the arts and craft, because it will be ready for action in times of crisis, but in the times of calmness, we shall experience and immerse ourselves in our culture in that particular space. It will not be shut down. It will be a fully functional space that we really capture, and I hope to encourage a number of you guys to come within our space to enjoy this, because you will be driving through a brand new road, easy access. There are three major points into the Kalinago space, so you can come from north or south, or you can come from the west. You will be able to immerse yourself in what KBA has to offer. And I say this not just to Dominicans who are listening right now, but especially to my Kalinago warriors. Because all of this is in preparation for the bigger things to come. We are just 20 minutes away from the new international airport. A visitor may want to spend his night in the Kalinago space, rather than spending downtown Roseau, driving up Roger in that winding road, and getting 2D. So he can possibly stay in the Kalinago space and see the plane come down and say, yeah, that's my flight, and head to the airport on good road. Yeah. So we have to invest in our Airbnb, in our homestay programs. We have to ensure that we have the foods that we can sell, the jelly nuts and the fruits and vegetables, etc. All of this is important because the major projects that are happening on the national scene will affect us positively. And we speak to the aerial tram that's head down the wonderful Boiling Lake, which has a wonderful story because our people used to go there, Miranda, to do our ceremonies at the Boiling Lake. And sometimes we forget that we were there already and it's our thing. But we'll remind you of that for the tourism project as we go along. Our new cargo port, the marina up north. All of these. And just to say that when I grew up as a young boy, the Kalinago territory seems to be very far. Very, very, very far. And with the new developments happening across the country, it's very, very close. And if what we've been doing as a government, we realize that everywhere, there was a point when we used to say tongue and country. We can't say it anymore, because everywhere on the island is a tongue. Yeah, so the island itself has been evolving, and I'm happy to play my part as the minister that is charged with ensuring that the people of the Kalinago space continue to grow and improve. And I also recognize that in understanding our culture and respecting our stewardship, that we really can help in some ways to rectify the generations of injustice that happened to us. We must not forget the time when we were in Roosevelt, they called us scribe and touched our hair and wondered if it had a particular scent and stuff like that. We can't forget that. But it is good to know that in 2024 we can consolidate these efforts to ensure that what we have contributed to that space, and I dare say Waitikubuli, that it doesn't go unnoticed, and the fact that we have been contributing from inception and will continue to contribute to the development of our country. I just want to thank all of you for being here, and I'm especially happy to see my Kalinago Braves here. Chief, thanks for being here, and as we move this project forward, and the guys from the HDCs, I see some of my cousins and neighbors here. It's exciting because I suspect if I do a poll, all of you might put up your hand and say that you have Kalinago heritage. All of you in the room. All of you in the room. Yeah, so if I do that poll, because really and truly the essence of what we are as Dominicans and Waitikubalians is based on Kalinago. If we take off Kalinago from the equation, then it falls apart. You know, like when you cook in a pot by the river, you have free stones. So that's our culture. We have a little bit of African, a little bit of Kalinago, and we have mix up of European, French, and stuff like that. Now what happens if I just take off my Kalinago stone now? The pot falls over. So let's keep it tight. And this is what this project has helped me to understand even more, because there's sometimes this conversation that we are different, we are apart, that we are clearly not considered. But in doing this project, I realized that we're good partners with the guys at the ODM and local government and the people here from Kalinago territory, who are just simple people, farmers and housewives. They can participate in the project. And so I dare say that, Dr. Mark, that this project stands really as a testimony to what we can do as small communities, which we can magnify at the national level, and that no voice is too little to be part of the conversation. And I'm really happy to have my cabinet colleagues here with me this morning, and the good leadership at the project. And Kofi, thanks for your leadership on all of this. And I dare say I have a commander here in Mr. Blackmore, who is the marshal in this thing, and in ensuring that we can do this. And so about maybe a few weeks from now, a month from now, we'll go into the Kalinago space, and one of us will operate an excavator and dig some soil. I don't do like a spade thing. I don't think a spade thing. Like a spade if a little bow on that is not for us. The serious excavator, I want to go in there and dig that field, because it is a project I've been waiting for a little while. And I'm really happy for the patience of the people to understand that it is a process that we have to go through. And in the process, we have little issues and we have to tidy it up. Because once it is done, it's something that will remain with us forever. And so we are mindful that we have to consider everybody's interest in all of this. And it will be in the Bataka community. The Bataka community is one of the biggest communities in the Kalinago space. As a matter of fact, it's the only place that doesn't have a shelter as we speak. And if you look at the length and breadth of this constituency called Salivia, the Bataka is almost central, because you also consider the Atkinson community and the Antrizal community, and at the back of the hill, the Concord community. So the Bataka is almost the center. So it will feed all of those. So this project is not just a Kalinago territory project, it is a constituency project, but also, lest we forget, the Kalinago territory, chosen by my forefathers, as a rugged last frontier, happens to be the only safe space on the island in case of a volcanic eruption. So there were those who spoke about, oh, they run us to that place, and no, we chose that space. And when you look at the geological timeline of the Kalinago space, when Dominica came out of the ocean, the Kalinago territory was the first part of it to come out. Yeah, so it's not an easy place. It's a sacred place for me. It's a place that I was born in, and I was blessed to be born in there, and I will die there. But it's a place that will continue to contribute positively to what we do as White Equilibrians. And one of those days, I'm hoping that, with the support of the chief, that we will move some sort of motion to have our true name of our country be embedded as part of our history. So, White Equilibrian could stand out as that place that continues to be rough and rugged, but that remains a new frontier to many people. And as we do our national projects, the airport, etc., that more people will come and enjoy what we have to offer as a people. And I think we will, the ancestors will be happy for it, and would have created a good platform for generations and generations. I say 7 generations of Kalinagos to come, because we're happy we can do what we can in our time. So friends, comrades, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to share this, and I hope to see you guys maybe a month from now, the contractor, and we can do some serious digging, and we can see the works happening, because it is something that will benefit the entire country, but more especially the people who reside within the environment of the Kalinago territory. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Frederick. Of course, as I said to you, the Minister is very passionate about the environment, and more importantly, that project, since he has been so closely associated with it from the conception stage. It is by no coincidence that we have among us today Honorable McIntyre, who are wearing a number of hats. First of all, I always say to my colleagues, nothing can happen in government without the backing and cooperation and support of the Ministry of Finance. As if to say that wasn't enough, we also obligated to Dr. McIntyre, because he is the minister with the portfolio for economic development, from which this project is part of parcel of, and very significantly, he also has the mandate for climate resilience. So I know for us it's an honor to have Dr. McIntyre with us. Excuse me for that, because we went to school together, so sometimes the tongue will slip. But this morning he is the Minister for Finance, so is Honorable Dr. McIntyre, to share with us some of his reflections and of course his interest on this very significant undertaking. Let us all make him feel welcome.
Thank you very much. That puts me in a very tight position, because I'm tempted to say PS, I'm tempted to say Lucian, I'm tempted to say so many things. But anyway, our Prime Minister has left, but let me just recognize that he was here with us. Honorable Kozia Frederick, other members of Cabinet who were here earlier, Mrs. Annette Thomas Sanford, our Kalinago Chief, other councillors present this morning, Ms. Lydia Capitol-Letuse, Chief Personnel Officer, Mr. Lucian Blackmore, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment, Constituency Empowerment, other permanent secretaries, Director of Audit who is here with us this morning, Mr. Carrett, our Climate Resilient Execution Unit Head, Rosalind Paul, Mr. Grano, Dr. Justin Sean, Head of UNDP Project Officer in Dominica, Dr. Junora Joseph, Project Manager for the Major Capital Projects Office and staff, Mrs. Marilyn Coffey Morris, Project Coordinator, Mr. Paul Phillip, CEO, Oyo Construction. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, listeners, pleasant good morning to everyone gathered here today. We are gathered here today on this auspicious occasion to celebrate the signing of the contract for the construction of the Kalinago Territory Multipurpose Center and Emergency Shelter. The building works component of the project that is building adaptive capacity to climate change and disaster risk in the Kalinago Territory. In addition to the construction of the shelter, the project also consists of 3 other consultancies. That is, the development of a 5-year development and training plan for the Kalinago Territory. Secondly, the preparation of a building maintenance manual and training for the Kalinago Territory as well. And thirdly, the preparation of a disaster risk management and climate change adaptation plan for the Kalinago Territory and development of an inclusive disaster risk management and climate adaptation, public awareness and education campaign for the Kalinago Territory. It is important to note that implementation of this project has been made possible by grant funds provided by the Canadian government through the Community Disaster Risk Reduction Fund, which is administered by the Caribbean Development Bank, and the counterpart funding provided by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The total funding envelope for this project consists of EC 5.6 billion in grant funding and 3 million in counterpart funding from the government of Dominica. We are grateful to our development partners for their long-standing and unwavering support for our national development agenda and their trust in the vision of this government. The project will contribute substantially towards attaining Dominica's climate resilience and recovery target, of strengthening the ability of our communities to respond to and recover from natural disasters, particularly in severe climatic events. We know that climate change is a real and present danger. The government is acutely aware that our economic survival rests on ensuring that we implement robust climate adaptation and disaster risk management strategies. This project is yet another significant addition to the national portfolio of major capital projects being executed to build resilience in the Kalinago Territory and Dominica by extension. A testament to the fact that this government is working assiduously for and with the Kalinago people. We have and continue to construct homes under the Housing Recovery Project and the 11th European Development Fund, while Lot 2 of the East Coast Road, which runs from Cassabros to Hatton Garden, is at an advanced stage of construction. This road, expected to be completed in June of this year, has already yielded significant improvements to the Eastern Transportation Corridor traversing Cassabros, the entire Kalinago Territory, and Atkinson. I'm also compelled to mention that the government has invested in the upgrade of the territory's water system and distribution system. Having said this, we'll all appreciate that this project cannot be seen in isolation and demonstrates the government's commitment to holistic development, thereby improving the lives, opportunities, and outlook of our indigenous Kalinago people. The government of Dominica thrusts towards the implementation of well-planned and durable infrastructure underpins our national focus on developing a resilient future for all Dominicans, inclusive of our first people, the first pioneers of sustainable living. We recognize our indigenous people as a proud and culturally astute people, and the government has not spared any cost in ensuring that the structure is an aesthetically pleasing and culturally appropriate edifice. The building, inspired by Kalinago folklore and tradition, is intended to be a beautiful design space, which will serve not only as a shelter, but also as a hub for community activities and an incubator for economic growth. I take this opportunity to wish in the successful completion and future utilization of this space. This is the written part. But if we were what I want you all to recognize is what's happening here today, the signing of the contract. It's a much bigger picture that is being painted. So here we have Dominica, and we're in the process of developing a modern economic infrastructure. For us to develop this modern economic infrastructure, there are a few different things that we have to put in place. So for instance, access, which is where the international airport comes in. And when it comes in, obviously, it's not just a matter of bringing people to Dominica. It's not just for tourism only. It's the potential it has for agriculture. So you harvest in the morning and your fruits or your crops or whatever are on the shelves in Miami in the afternoon. So we have to look at the bigger picture of that. This is what it brings to us. That's the access point of view. Let alone the access point of view, you have to look at the infrastructure. This is why we are investing that amount of money, you heard it this morning, into developing the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, the bridges. So without roads, roads are the pathway to development. So we must have the roads and the infrastructure. You cannot have a factory, then you don't have a road to get to the factory. You don't have a road to bring your raw produce to the factory. You don't have a road to get your produce from the factory. So you need the roads and the infrastructure. So that's about access. That's about infrastructure. But then what about energy? You need a reliable, clean, new energy. This is why we've invested that much in the geothermal. So then we're going to have a 10 megawatts. So you talk about the energy point of view, lower tariffs, making you more attractive to foreign direct investment. Education. This is why we have about 6 schools being built now. One of these schools is the Goodwill School there, vocational and technical training. What does this school do? It's going to provide all the vocational and technical skills that we need for all the major projects that we are doing. You have an airport, we have a marina, we've got a cruise village, we've got geothermal. Where do we get the capacity? Where do we build capacity to have all the different skills to handle those different projects? Let alone this, you come to health, because health is an important part. We built all these major modern new health centers, and we have 2 modern new health hospitals as well. So that is where health comes in. So whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's energy, whether it's access, and obviously technology and the digital aspects. That's where we have all these digital hubs all over the country that people can participate in all those different things. And what cements all of this together is our collective consciousness. Because that is why, and those of you who haven't had a chance to read the CREED documents and the 2 guiding documents, the NRDS, the National Resilience Development Strategy, and the CRRP, that's the Climate Resilience Recovery Plan. These are the blueprints that we are following for development. These are the blueprints that the entire world is talking about. Only Dominica has done this, and we should be proud of ourselves that we have a blueprint for our development for resilience. Now, this is where other countries are following us in this regard, whether it's the region internationally. As you heard the Prime Minister say, we're always being mentioned and we're being referenced because we have a plan. Obviously, climate financing is a major issue, and you can't go to anyone looking for climate financing if you do not have a plan and a blueprint. This is why we've been successful, because we have this plan and this blueprint. But I'm putting all of this together to recognize that just this simple structure, well, not so simple, but this structure that we're going to build in the Kalinago territory. So it deals with the 6 result areas that we mentioned of those plans that I'm mentioning. So the result areas, whether it's the resilient infrastructure, so that structure is resilient. When you look at the whole collective consciousness, that's the whole the cultural part of that particular space there. When you look at it from just a climate change point of view and what the safety that it provides to the people there also. So the space, it's beyond just the cement and the mortar, as Honorable Frederick mentioned. It's for the cultural part of it and to add value to it. Now this is the economics of it there. So this place, a lot of people are going to visit this place. When they come here, what are they going to get? So that's why as a government, when we continuously tell people, get prepared, get prepared, get prepared. All these major capital projects are going on. This is part of the preparation part. When all the different tourists coming from the international airport, they're all going to visit Kalinago territory, they're all going to visit that. How are we going to benefit from that? What's the turnover? What's the whole economics of this stuff? So this is all part of the 6 result areas, which is the robust economy that comes in here, which is the strong communities, this also comes in here. This is the resilient infrastructure, this is also represented here. And the collective conscious, this is also representative here. The strong institutions, this is also represented there. Now, in terms of our resilience, there's more to just the physical part. There's also the financial resilience. That is why we have a disaster vulnerability fund, which we capitalize from the CBI program. So recently you must have heard that our FSU unit got the award in the entire region as the best FSU unit in the entire region. This is all part of the financial resilience that we are talking about. So it's more than just the physical part. There's also so many other parts attached to our resilience agenda. But this is the modern economic infrastructure that we're building, and we want everybody to come on board with us. This is just part of the whole story. So everything has to fit in. So you cannot see this in isolation. You cannot see it as just the trees. All these trees make a forest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable McIntyre, and indeed you touch upon all the significant areas of finance, economic development, and of course, climate resilience. In the interest of time, I will now call on Mr. Paul Phillip, with the CEO of Oyo Construction, to come up so we can do the signing of the contract. Thank you very much, Mr. Phillip, and Mrs. Morris, and Mr. Henry for witnessing. We're now at the question time. Again, as you will see on the program, the questions and comments we're concerned with this morning is specific to this project and this development. So it's my pleasure to pass on to the media right now. I don't see your good friend. Is Curtis somewhere around? Curtis is not there anyway. But we now open the floor to the media for your comments, your observation, and of course, any questions you may have concerning the project, whatever you might have heard this morning, you want more insight to, you're free to do so. All I ask of you is to identify yourself by your name and the media house you represent. You mean we were so overly generous with information this morning that we have left no need for questions. So, well done, Dr. Mark, and well done, Honorable Frederick. It is for me an absolute pleasure to call to the fore a lady that I know that have been studiously working at this project, at all the components, and we heard Dr. McIntyre went into all the various components of this project. And so it's for me an honor to call to the floor Mrs. Marilyn Morris to give us the vote of thanks. Mrs. Morris.
Please, I'm not tall like you, please. Okay, can you all hear me clearly? Yes. Okay, great. Okay. Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, who is absent, who was present this morning. Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, Minister for Finance, Economic Development, Climate Resilience and Social Security. Honorable Frederick, Minister for Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment. Other members of Cabinet who was with us this morning. Mrs. Annette Thomas Sanford, Kalinago Chief and Councillors. Ms. Karen Prevost, Secretary to the Cabinet. Mrs. Lydia Capitone Toussaint, the Chief Personnel Officer. Ms. Denise Edwards, Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. Yes. Ms. Ian Blackmore, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment. Other Permanent Secretaries, Ms. Carlin Roberts, National Authorizing Officer and Director of the Major Capital Projects Office. Dr. Justin Stone, Head of UNDP Project Office in Dominica, and other UNDP staff members, Ms. Alice Farampel, the present KDO, but she is not with us here today because she's out of state on medical. Other heads of division, Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment. Glenn Laville, Contracts Manager, Major Capital Projects Office. Dr. General Joseph, Projects Manager of the Major Capital Projects Office and staff. Mr. Paul Phillip, CEO of Oyo Construction Limited and Virtuoso Architects Limited, JV and staff. Mark Frampton, represented here by Bridget Stout, Principal Architect, and other staff of Anonymat Architecture Inc., Consultant for the Supervision of Construction. Mrs. Muta Laville Matthew, Chair of the Atkinson Village Council. Melina Johnville, Director of Audit, Presidents and members of the Hamlet Development Committees, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, the media. Good morning to everybody. It's still morning, right? Or it's afternoon? It's afternoon, okay. Pleasant good afternoon to everybody. The project entitled Building Resilience and Adaptive Capacity to Climate Change and Disaster Risk within the Kalinago Territory is a milestone project for the residents of the Kalinago Territory. You may ask, what is that project? We told you. It is the construction of one of the most resilient structures within the Kalinago Territory, the Multipurpose Center Emergency Shelter in Badaka, as noted prior, that is expected to change the trajectory of the Kalinago people. Today brings down the curtain on the formalization of the agreement by the client, the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and the contracting firm, Oyo Construction and Virtuoso Architects Limited, who has just signed the contract to construct the Multipurpose Center Emergency Shelter, which will be constructed in Badaka Hamlet in the Kalinago Territory. The Kalinago residents has long awaited the commencement of work on this momentous structure and have witnessed the signing of the contract for the amount of $7,600,285 Eastern Caribbean dollars to Oyo Construction and Virtuoso Architects Limited, JV. Leading up to this day, it has indeed been a very engaging process with the people within the Kalinago Territory to have continuous meetings pre and post the procurement period. The Multipurpose Center is expected to bring economic benefits to the Kalinago people, where the people will be engaged in bringing to bear a number of economic activities through the use of this major facility. The use of this structure was outlined by Dr. Joseph, and we know that with the support of the overarching team, the Honorable Prime Minister, the Kalinago Chief and Council, the Hamlet Development Committees, and you, the Kalinago people, this center will bring success to the residents of the Kalinago space, and also the Honorable Minister, as I mentioned. As we focus all our attention on the people within the Kalinago territory and put our heads, minds, and body together to get this structure built, we would like to express our thanks to the following. We would like to first thank all the residents of the Kalinago territory who has been very patient by attending meetings, responding to queries, giving recommendations, following up with the team, and providing feedback during the period of waiting. Their contributions and suggestions to the team towards the designing of this beautiful structure is noteworthy, since it encapsulates and embraces the Kalinago culture in its vibrant and creative design. This design showcases a basket weaving structure, one of the main tourism products being produced by the Kalinago people within the Kalinago territory. It also showcases from an aerial view the look of an arrow, which brings to bear the tool utilized by the Kalinago people in their former years. What an epic look, and the design, and everyone can attest to that. Thanks again to the Kalinago people. You are a formidable force. The center will also double up as an emergency shelter in the event there is a disaster. And we would like to echo to the residents that the structure will be built very resilient, as my former colleagues mentioned. So the structure can be used as a hub for communication, residency, collaboration with communities within the Kalinago territory, as well as other communities across the island. We are all mindful of what we are faced with when the island is devastated by Hurricane Maria, and the design of the structure was done with this in mind. In that vein, we would like to say thank you to Anonymous Architects Inc., Mark Frampton and his team, for working hand in hand with the Ministry of Environment, the Honorable Minister, the team, and the Kalinago people, and to engage them in putting this beautiful, artful, historical design together, which will not only be utilized as a multipurpose center, but as an emergency shelter, a dual structure, and a major tourism project. Everyone will be enlightened to visit this amazing structure. Thank you goes out to the former Kalinago chief, Mr. Lorenzo Sanford, who has served the teams well, being ever present at the many hamlet consultations, meetings, engagements with community persons and residents alike from inception of the project to when he demitted office in July 2024. His stewardship also at the steering committee meetings with representatives of other ministries has not gone unnoticed, and we want to say thank you to him for this. We look forward to working with the present Kalinago chief, Mrs. Annette Sanford, and the new council members, and continuing to work with the Hamlet Development committees, and other groups and associations within the Kalinago space, as we all collaboratively chart this course for the development of the territory on a whole and the fruition of this major milestone project. To the Hamlet Development Committee, presidents, and committee members of the Kalinago territory, we thank you for your ongoing support, commitment, and guidance throughout have not gone unnoticed, and we will continue to engage you and your respective hamlets as we move forward with this project. Let us continue to engage each other for the next 18 months as we discuss, plan, and execute activities to continuously engage your people during this period of construction and beyond. To the Honorable Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative, Frederick, a stalwart with the Kalinago territory, a driving force to get things done for the residents of the territory, we thank you. The residents are very happy and elated to see this contract signing today, which shows how serious you and your government are to commence this major economic construction project, which will bring benefits to them as a people. Thanks to the Honorable Minister for continuously engaging with the Kalinago people at the many community meetings to provide feedback, updates, listen to their queries, and to provide prompt feedback on an ongoing basis. For his unwavering support and guidance for this project from inception to continuously be the driving force of the project management team towards revamping and launching the Kalinago Red Cross Group. After more than 50 years, we also say thank you. This is mentioned today as another milestone, and this is very noteworthy since it allows for advanced planning and preparation for the Kalinago people when the structure is built. Thanks to the Minister, since subsequent to this, the Kalinago people have been able to receive a number of training in CPR, disaster management training, among others. This training will continue as we continue to work with the Dominican Red Cross Society. We wish to thank the authorities of the Canadian High Commission, who has provided the grant financing towards this major construction project. And we must echo that the Kalinago people are very much grateful for this gesture. We know that Hurricane Maria dealt a serious blow to our economy of the island, and we offer our gratitude to them from that faithful and from today onwards. To the team of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Paul Saunders and his team, we thank you for the guidance throughout the past months and look forward to the following 18 months and to working seamlessly with us as a team, with the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of the Capital Projects Office, the construction firm, Oyo Construction and Virtuoso Architects Limited, the consultant team, Anonymat, and the PMT to implement the activities under this project. The Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Employment feels grateful to be the ministry responsible for implementing such a major milestone project on behalf of the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, on behalf of the Kalinago people. We therefore thank the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, notably the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Roosevelt Skerrit, the Office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of Finance, and to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Irvin McIntyre, for providing the counterpart financing for the construction of this major facility. We know that the residents within the Kalinago territory are extremely grateful to see the project commence soon, and for this milestone, which is coming to their territory, targeted to be completed within the next 16 to 18 months. The Prime Minister and his team has always targeted development for the Kalinago territory, and by signing off on this financing is testament of his commitment to this process. And we say a big thank you to you, sir, and his team and your team. We note the procurement process was a lengthy one, but with the guided assistance of CREED, notably Dr. Joseph and her team, Mr. Glenn Laville, who now operates within the Ministry of Capital Projects Office, we were able to achieve this goal by making the situation a reality, by signing the contract on the construction of the Multipurpose Center Emergency Shelter today, Monday, January 6, 2025. We also thank the construction firm, Oyo Construction and Virtuoso Architects Limited, headed by CEO, Mr. Paul Phillip, for winning the bid for this major milestone project, and we look forward to a great working relationship with you, the teams of the Ministry of Environment, and the people within the Kalinago territory, the Capital Projects Office, and the Caribbean Development Bank, and other stakeholders. Last but by no means least, thank you is in order to the team of the Ministry of Environment and the project management team, comprising of 4 of us who has led this process with the guided assistance of many permanent secretaries within our ministries. Your guided leadership, the other permanent secretaries who served us, has brought us to this day, and we will continue as a formidable team to brace whatever challenges may come our way. Working together closely, we will break down all barriers and let us work together collaboratively with the Kalinago people. I must mention thank you to Mr. Donaldson Frederick. He was a former Kalinago Development Officer who worked very closely with us with the team and provided the necessary oversight over the years from inception of the project to now, and also to Ms. Alice Dairampo, who took over from him. We thank everyone for this teamwork and look forward to moving mountains towards the completion of the project, of this major milestone project. To the media, we say thank you for being here today. We note your busy schedules, but you saw it fitting to be part of this history in the making for the Kalinago territory, which is expected to bring economic development to the people who have fought the good fight, who have braced the challenges, of people who are resilient, hardworking, and with the urge for development. I leave with this quote from Mr. Cobwood Coffee: nothing happens before it's time. Kalinago people in the Kalinago territory, now is your time. Let us build the Multipurpose Center Emergency Shelter. Good morning to everybody, and have a blessed day.
Thank you, everyone. And let me say thank you, Mrs. Morris, for extending the courtesy to all of us. And because you're here in such large numbers today, I cannot not personally extend my gratitude to my fellow colleague PSAs, Dr. Paul hidden at the back somewhere. Dr. Esprit, and of course, Mrs. Gloria Joseph to be here today. Also, since this is a significant cultural project, we know we're going to be working assiduously as well with the former minister, Miss Rosalind Paul, who is also our cultural advisor, who will be, of course, doing us the honors during the ongoing of this project, and our partner Sean from UNDP office. Thank you, everyone, and again, pleasant lunch and safe journey back home to you from the territory. Thank you.